What's going on, y'all? Ab-stract here. In this video is going to be a breakdown of Yhwach's genius invasion of the Serite. Let me say this, if you thought this war just happened by accident or things were done coincidentally, you would be wrong. I'm going to break down every step Yhwach took to completely dominate and demoralize the Soul Reapers. But before we get started, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and leave a like on the video. Now, I've broken this down into about 5 parts detailing everything the Quincy did in each section, along with my own personal analysis. Let's get started. We see before the war even starts that Yhwach has taken action in 2 of the 3 realms, that being Hueco Mundo and the world of the living. In Hueco Mundo, he himself personally defeated the ruling queen Tyr Halibel and left soldiers to maintain their position. Now in the world of the living, he is having his Quincy mass exterminate hollows. This in turn creates an imbalance of souls and forces the Soul Society to correct said imbalance by killing the inhabitants of the Rukon district. Furthermore, this was an issue that if not solved promptly could cause the destruction of both realms. So right off the bat, Yhwach is causing chaos and putting the Soul Society in a tough spot. He starts rapidly killing hollows in the world of the living, then forces the Soul Reapers to deal with the repercussions of it. He's coming out bold and pretty much announcing that the Quincy are here and we do whatever we want. Now, what does he have to gain from being so upfront about the existence of Quincy's? What merit is there to his actions? I'll tell you. Number 1, he's entering with boldness. He's declaring to the Soul Society that we are here and we're not afraid. We will destroy hollows on your watch and when you're not looking. This is a statement. Number 2, he's not willing to compromise with anyone. Yhwach is taking actions that can affect the state of the cosmology as we know it, and he doesn't care. He's advertising just how much he doesn't care about the world. In fact, he's saying, I'm going to make it this way anyway. Number 3, from his standpoint, this makes the bad guys look even worse. Now think about that. Imagine being told that your death will save the universe. Do you honestly feel good about playing that part? Because that's basically more or less what Mayuri probably told his people before he had to butcher them in the name of the Soul Society. Might I also add, this is a blatant taunt to the Soul Reapers who had thought they had mass exterminated all the Quincy many years before, but as we'll soon see, they are about to be the ones to be exterminated. Let's continue. Next we get the declaration of war. The Quincy show up without warning and quite literally from the shadows. This first encounter results in the deaths of 116 Soul Reapers, Lieutenant Chojiro Sasakibe being among them. Now that is the entirety of Squad 1, and it's important to note this is the only squad attacked and the only seated officer killed. Now, personally, I believe they attacked Squad 1 solely because doing this would add pressure and guilt to the squads who couldn't assist them in their time of need, and demoralize Yamamoto, who not only lost his lieutenant, but his entire squad. I also don't think it's a coincidence Lieutenant Sasakibe died in front of his captain's eyes. In fact, I'm going to prove to you Lieutenant Sasakibe was targeted by Yhwach when the Quincy's first arrived. So, we know 1,000 years ago Yabaha Shah invaded the Soul Society and was met with extreme resistance by the 13 Court Guard squads. And actually, to say it was a defeat would be an understatement. They were completely annihilated. But before Yamamoto delivered the finishing blow to Yhwach, we see a young Chojiro Sasakibe stab him from behind. And we can also see here that Yhwach does not look to see who stabs him from behind, but every other captain is visually present. And since Sasakibe is under that pile of corpses Yhwach is standing on, it's safe to say he at the very least engaged with Yhwach. Now, my theory is this. Yhwach knows exactly who stabbed him and gave special orders to the Quincy declaring war on the Serite. Those orders included the declaration of war and the elimination of the one who stabbed Yhwach in the back 1,000 years ago. With Yhwach being the last of his army to fall due to Chojiro stabbing him, it's only poetic justice that Lieutenant Sasakibe was the first major death of the war and died in front of his captain's eyes, the man that defeated Yhwach. So as you can see, this is all very calculated and laid out by Yhwach. He's not just doing these things randomly. You guys think Chojiro was the first death by mistake? No, it all makes sense. It all links up. He stabbed Yhwach in the back 1,000 years ago, so now he has to die first in front of his head captain's eyes. It's poetic justice. Let's move on. So after the first invasion, there's a funeral held for Lieutenant Sasakibe. We see 7 squad captains present, including the head captain. It's a very somber moment as all in attendance lower their heads and close their eyes, respecting the passing of a fellow comrade. Head Captain Yamamoto, silent but stoic as ever, is filled with memories as he must say goodbye to his long loyal subordinate. So at this point, Yamamoto must know who is behind this, and he has to feel extremely guilty for not settling the matter 1,000 years ago. I imagine he thinks that his entire squad's death is on his hands, and we haven't even gotten to the invasion yet. Moving on to the captain's meeting, Mayuri reveals what most captains already assumed. The Quincy are in fact responsible for everything happening so far. Yamamoto recounts the words of the invaders about attacking in 5 days, but he is no fool and demands that all squads prepare for an attack at any moment. So this was really good on the Soul Reaper side, not taking what the enemy has to say at face value and preparing for war immediately, because no sooner than that meeting ended, the first invasion would begin. But Yamamoto must feel like a complete failure at this point. If we include the bound arc, this would make the 3rd time that the Serite was under attack on his watch, and unlike the last few times, a lot of people actually ended up dying. So let's get to the invasion. The Quincy begin by appearing not from the shadows this time, but from a blue flame made of condensed reishi. Nearly every squad is caught off guard by this, and there are heavy casualties and many people in critical condition. Among them, Lieutenant Izudu Kira and 3 other seated officers. The official numbers are as follows: 25 squad members killed in the 601 district, and 61 more in the West 224 district, with Akun confirming for us that over 1,000 have perished in 7 minutes. Now guys, this is just a masterpiece. With the Soul Reapers having no idea of how they were invaded the first time, they are caught somewhat off guard even a second time, and if you look at it through their perspective, it actually makes a lot of sense, because the only ways to get into the Serite are through the Senkaimon, which must be open on the other side, passing through the Soul Shield membrane, or like how Ichigo and his friends tried to do, get Jidambo to open the gate for you. So the Quincy appearing from seemingly out of nowhere definitely inflicted a bit of psychological damage to the Soul Reapers. And what's more, each Quincy is supposed to be able to fight a captain level Shinigami, and by my count there should be 1 Quincy for each letter of the alphabet. So the Quincy have brought damn near twice the military might to the Serite and are wreaking havoc. In addition, they're so spread out that it makes it damn near impossible for any captain to deal with more than 1 Quincy at a time, leaving any Quincy not fighting a captain to go completely unchallenged. Let's also not forget that the Quincy are very much aware of the enemy's key players and even have information on the techniques that the enemies use. So they're fully prepared for this. They caught them off guard. There's not too much that the Soul Reapers can do at this very moment. Like, they're caught with their pants down a second time and it's just not going their way. 1,000 dead in 7 minutes, guys. So, as the invasion continues, some Quincy face off against captains, and it is now clear to me why the captains chose to use their Bankai so early during the fights. And I think Byakuya best represents the feelings of every captain who fought a Stern Ritter during the first invasion. He says, and I quote, "There's no reason to hold anything back. Keep in mind that these enemies are determined to exterminate the Soul Society. They'll show us no mercy." Shortly after, we see Byakuya, Toshiro, Soifon, and Komamura use Bankai, and they are subsequently stolen. So the captains are finally facing off against the Quincy and have no intention of taking it easy on them or warming up. If you ask me, this is what all the killing that the Quincy did was for, to get the captains to a point of anger and desperation where they would go all out and use their full power from the beginning, thus allowing the Quincy to steal that power. Let's also not forget, Yhwach had so much intel that he even knew there were lieutenants that could perform Bankai and made sure to include it in his Daten. You could also argue Driscoll stealing but not using Sasakibe's Bankai was an intentional move to make the Soul Society believe that the Bankai were being sealed and not stolen. The reason this difference is crucial is because a sealed weapon means something that is removed from play, but a stolen weapon, is just another obstacle for you to have to fight and overcome. And this isn't just any stolen weapon. This is your Bankai, your trump card, your creme de la creme. This is your final move. This is your Getsuga Tensho being stolen and used against you. So like, it's just super crazy. The psychological effects this would put on a Soul Reaper in the middle of a war cannot be underestimated. Like I said, this is your Zanpakuto spirit taken from you, your full power stolen, and your only means of victory moving out of reach. And this is just for the ones that got theirs stolen. I imagine ones who didn't get their Bankai stolen feel like they're in between like a rock and a hard place. The decision to fight without Bankai and possibly be killed, or use Bankai only to have it taken from you. Oh yes, Yhwach, you are a truly evil man. But it doesn't end there. The last chess move by Yhwach in the first invasion would see the Serete's king killed. So as Yamamoto finishes his fight with the one he thinks is Yhwach, the man himself comes to confront the head captain. Yhwach's first words are to his subordinate, who he praises for successfully carrying out his mission, which was to essentially confirm Yhwach's presence on the battlefield and keep Yamamoto busy, while in reality he was going to go see Sosuke Aizen. Yhwach then kills Royd Lloyd and addresses Yamamoto. He informs him that he went to go see Sosuke Aizen, and Yamamoto is visibly disturbed by this revelation. Then Yhwach taunts and goads Yamamoto to use his Bankai, asking him if he tired himself out fighting his imposter. Yamamoto hastily retorts and activates his Bankai. Yhwach, waiting for this very moment, pulls out his medallion and steals it. He then asks the head captain if he should use his Bankai to bring back the fallen Soul Reapers. This upsets Yamamoto and begins to charge at him. But Yhwach summons his Sword of Light and cuts him down. So everything Yhwach did in this section was well thought out and executed perfectly, from visiting Aizen and trying to recruit him to asking Yamamoto if he's tired from fighting his imposter. First, let's talk about Yhwach. Having a stand-in and visiting Sosuke Aizen. This allowed Yhwach to accurately gauge just how powerful Yamamoto was, number one. Number two, it did force Yamamoto to use up quite a bit of energy defeating his imposter. Debatable, right? And then number three, it provided shock value that the only thing that was actually defeated was an imposter, and that the real deal should be much stronger than what Yamamoto was fighting. So it had that, effect as well. Then it's revealed Yhwach went to go visit Sosuke Aizen. This created unease because the type of threat he poses and adds to the overall situation. I mean, could you guys imagine an Aizen and Yhwach team up? It would be ridiculous. Anyways, next we'll cover stealing Yama's Bankai and his subsequent death. Yhwach's such a genius because this could have went down a number of ways, right? Yamamoto could have got the F out of there once he realized it really wasn't him. He could have just fought in Shikai and tried to test Yhwach. That would have wasted Yhwach's energy outside of War Route or the whatever the Quincy castle's called. There's a lot of ways it could have went. But Yhwach played on Yamamoto's old age and pride by asking him if he's basically all spent up from his fight with Royd Lloyd. And of course Yamamoto's response is no, and he immediately goes Bankai, but this is what Yhwach wanted all along, for you to go Bankai so he could then steal it. And after that, Yhwach taunts Yamamoto and talks about bringing back his dead subordinates, and the look on Yamamoto's face is clear. He's given up, and he's tired of fighting. With nothing left to do, with no power left to use, he stands tall and accepts his fate as Yhwach cuts him down. With this, Yhwach's invasion was complete. Now, in my opinion, the goal of this part of the invasion was to set unease and totally demoralize the Soul Reapers, and this was accomplished by the death of their at the time strongest fighter and head captain, the man whose Reiatsu alone lit a blaze in all of them and caused them to fight harder. In conclusion, Yhwach's invasion of the Serete was a masterful display of strategy and psychological warfare that left a lasting impact on the Soul Reapers. From the chaos and imbalance created by the rapid extermination of Hollows to the targeted attack on Squad 1 that demoralized Captain Yamamoto, each step of Yhwach's plan was meticulously executed to undermine the resolve of his enemies. First, the Quincy's sudden appearance and overwhelming force caught the Soul Reapers off guard. This led to heavy casualties and widespread panic, and then the theft of the Bankai further compounded the psychological toll that the battles were having, leaving the Soul Reapers feeling vulnerable and powerless in the face of their enemies. Moreover, Yhwach's cunning tactics, including the use of imposters, manipulation, taking into account Yamamoto's pride and fatigue, just demonstrates his keen understanding of his opponents' weaknesses and vulnerabilities. By targeting the heart of the Soul Society and striking down its strongest defender, Yhwach effectively shattered the morale of the Soul Reapers, paving the way for his ultimate victory.